Well, hello, listeners. Welcome back to Life on Side B, a ministry of posture shift where we explore the beauty, joy, and challenges of living according to the traditional sexual ethic as LGBT and same-sex attracted Christians. We are just family again today. Not all family, but not the whole family's here, but we are here together. Welcome, y'all. Sarah, it's been a little bit. You're back.
It's good to be back with y'all.
We are so glad to see you. So, anyway, how's everyone doing? Anything new? Anything fun? What's going on?
Well, as per the last episode, I've mostly gotten the baby in a sleep routine.
Oh, wow.
So that has made life easier. I mean, we still got few bumps to get through, but he's sleeping a lot better.
Okay.
So there's
Lovely.
That's good. That's important.
Is,
very.
yeah.
Even though he is
really,
kind of
really
crying
good.
right now, but we're hoping he goes back to sleep.
Okay.
Because that's how this works.
Yes.
We have a baby joining us as a guest today.
So good.
Yeah.
I do have a very fun announcement.
Okay.
I have an employment announcement.
Ooh.
I have a new job.
Hey-o.
Congrats,
That's
we
good.
love. Where?
Yes.
Say more.
So I am, everyone knows I've worked for a ministry in Colombia, South America for 8 years. February, I decided to leave that job, good terms, everything, just decided I needed to focus more on LGBT ministry, working in LGBT inclusion and all these things. I've been kind of looking for a while of what that was going to look like. And I have now taken a staff position at Posture Shift.
Hey-o.
So,
You were already doing that?
so I was working part-time
I'm confused.
with
I'm
Posture
sorry.
Shift before. Well, I was. And then I took a break for a little bit as I again figured out like what that was going to look like and all of that back in January. And I have decided to go on as a full staff now, doing content and resources and all of that. So it's really, really exciting. And it works out perfectly as we've created this partnership between Life on Side B and Posture Shift. But by the way, listeners, you might hear crying babies in the background as well. That might be coming from my end. I have like 10 people in my house for the week. So
many
All the
babies as
crying.
guests. Oh my gosh, we love.
I don't know. Do you hear this baby crying?
I hear yours. Mine stopped.
Yeah, mine's still here. So, okay. Getting into a little bit, we're here talking about LGBTQ community as chosen family.
Yeah.
We've talked in previous episodes about like side A, side B kind of stuff, but we're now going to talk a little bit about the broader community, like side B people, like our place as side B people in the broader community of the LGBTQ community. And it's kind of fitting because it's what?
Pride Month.
Pride
Bloop, bloop,
Month.
bloop. Wow, wow.
Well, yeah. So we're going to talk about this as family. And I guess as a conversation starter, you know, sometimes I send these to you, sometimes I don't. I guess this is one that I'm not sending. How would you, I'm making this up as I go. Tell us about your first experience in the LGBTQ community or in relationship to the LGBTQ community. What was that like?
Oh, that's so interesting.
I can share my, unless someone already has theirs. Because I know I put you on the spot, so I don't know if you need time to think. You got it, Grant?
Yeah, I can go first.
Okay.
I think I really began to feel a part of the broader LGBTQ community in college. And there was a group on campus. It was called Spectrum. And at first, of course, I was very frightened. I was still semi-closeted at the time. I didn't know what words I wanted to use to describe myself. There was that additional level of confusion as a conservative Christian sexual minority. Like, what do I call myself? I just want to follow Jesus. And so I got involved with a student group on campus. And it was such a positive experience. I loved Spectrum so much. It was mostly weekly meetings, but there were also some events on campus, and one of the events that was kind of, I guess, paradigm shifting for me, or it was really important to me, was every year my university put on an event where local drag queens would come in and perform in the ballroom. And so it was called Good Queen Fun, which is a stellar name. Stellar name. Love it. Good Queen Fun. And there was one performance to Katy Perry's Unconditionally.
Okay.
And I swear it was like a spiritual experience because this performance was so good, and it was very emotional, and I was like, why am I so emotional? Oh, because I want unconditional love. And like that's a thing I was processing through as a sexual minority in a Christian context, like a desire to be unconditionally loved. So those are my first experiences in the broader LGBTQ community.
That's an amazing one. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those first times are always scary. When
So
you first step
scary.
in. You're like, I don't know what to expect. I don't know. All I know is what the pastors have told me about how they all have fangs and they're all just trying to kill you. You know? I'm just thinking of like Entangled, where Rapunzel's in the tower, and then like her mother just starts telling her that all the people outside have fangs, and like they're all just trying to kill her. So anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ashley, Sarah, either of you have experience you want to share?
I have none to speak of, so
Okay.
I have the internet. My exposure to the broader LGBT community is YouTube and Tumblr.
What was your first internet exposure
Tell us
then?
about that. I mean, all of Tumblr. There's that.
Yeah. At the very least, like, the reason I made one. Trying to think, probably randomly was probably Ash Hardell's YouTube page, YouTube channel.
Okay.
Back before that was their name. They did a reaction video with like some different YouTubers of a very violent coming out of some kid. And of like the different ones that were in the video, I kind of like went and looked at them, and I liked their stuff because it was very informational. They had a lot of very educational videos, and I liked those. And at the time, that was when I was starting to delve in the internet. So that was probably my first dive into what would be non-Christian LGBT interactions.
Okay.
Cool. Sarah, what about you?
I feel like I can't think of any particular memories, but I know that like freshman year me went to events as an ally, and did a lot of like that kind of energy. But the one that sticks out was my sophomore year. During African American Heritage Month, they had an event with a Black lesbian talking about the research that she did on women's queer spaces in DC. And it was so cool and so fascinating, and I think was a moment that I like very clearly saw like what queer me could be like, and knew, like I think seeing that representation of someone who held both identities was really important for me. I was so nervous, and I went by myself and was still kind of in denial. It was after I had told Jesus no, we weren't going to have the queer conversation the first time, but I was still kind of dragging my feet of like,
He's persistent.
Hard relate to that. I hard relate to that. We're just not going to talk about
well,
it.
Jesus, this was fun. We began this. I'm ending it. We're moving on.
It's like I decide this time.
Yep.
Yeah. I like that it was also the first time. This was after the first time that I told you we were not having this conversation.
I think I was a little bit still in denial. But I think going to that event, it was like, oh, like this is the kind of love that I want, and like this is what my life could look like, and this is what, because I grew up, I had neighbors who were gay, but they were white and older than me, like in their 60s, and so I think I didn't even have a conception of like what it could look like for me. And I think that event was really kind of gave me the courage to continue the conversation, and I think really validated queer studies as an academic interest in a way that I hadn't thought about before.
Yeah, that's really good. I think that that's so important. Like, I think there's also, as you said, there's something so unique, especially like, as you said, to see not just a queer person, but a queer person that you go, this is someone like me
Yeah.
in my situation, and that kind of interacts with all of my overlaying identities and all of this stuff. That's really good. Yeah, I was trying to like, well, it's funny. I said this question, and then I just remembered my like first experience in the LGBTQ community, which was really weird. I decided when I was like 19, no, 18, 19, I was gonna go to a gay bar for the first time. And let me just say that like, never go to a gay bar or a gay club by yourself. I don't care what age you are. Just don't go. It's not good. It's not a good situation. I don't side B side whatever you are, just never fun. And I still remember, first of all, I didn't at the time, as an 18-year-old, understand the difference between a gay club and a strip club. Let's just say, got a really bad situation at the beginning, moved to another location, had a better situation.
Wow.
Because the place that I went was like a street where it was like very, very gay. Like all of the like buildings were coordinated, painted as a rainbow.
Oh wow.
Like this one
purple,
this one blue. Like that's how openly gay this area was. So it was literally like you would go to one gay bar and then right next to it was another and then another. And so I didn't realize that some of these are different types of gay bars and gay clubs. And then I finally made it to another one. And then I was sitting in there. Also, young me did not realize that club life does not start until 11 p.m. So I went at 8 p.m., those kind of things. And then I still remember I sat there for multiple hours and obviously can't drink, so just sat there with my soda.
This is sad.
That's terrible.
Well, and then I still remember that I was in this area and it looked like such a small room and I was like, what is this? This is so weird. And so then it finally got to 10 o'clock and I was literally about to go home and then literally a wall opened. It was like the entire thing was a door and then it was like that was the dance floor and I was like, oh
yeah. Yes, this is making more sense.
I was like, now I understand. So there's a lot more that happened that night and we won't get into that, but like that was my first experience in any kind of gay culture. Yeah, go ahead.
When you were just sitting there by yourself for 3 hours before it got busy, did people talk to you?
Well, okay, so for context, I got to it's Wilton Manors in South Florida because I'm in South Florida, so it's fine to say that, it was in Wilton Manors. I got to Wilton Manors around 8 o'clock, and I didn't know where to go. So I got to Wilton at 8. I wasn't in that bar for 3 hours, so I should clarify that. I was there. I walked around for probably 30 minutes. Again, I'm talking like 12 years after, trying to remember everything of that night. I think I was in the strip club for like 30 minutes or something. And then I walked over and I found the other one. And I just looked for the biggest building with rainbow flags on it. And I was like, that one. I'm going to go into that one. And so then that's how I found that one. So to answer your question at the beginning. Oh, Becca's here.
Becca.
Hello.
Evening.
Welcome.
Hi.
Glad to be here.
We're so glad you're here to join us.
Thanks, me too. I'm sorry that I was just dropping in late.
Oh, no, you're fine.
Life.
Good surprises.
Yeah.
Yes, children, things, all of this. We're sharing our stories of our first experience in LGBT community culture. And I was talking about my first time in a gay club. as an
Where
18-year-old.
he walked into a strip club, got scared, went consoled himself with a Sprite for 3 hours.
So no one came and while I was sitting there with my
Perfect.
soda, no one came and talked to me. But I think I was also afraid for anyone to talk to me. Now people did talk to me afterwards. I made some friends there, but that was later
Yeah.
on.
That's
So, yeah.
wild to me.
But let's just say it
Like
scared me out of gay clubs for at least another 2 years of my
You know, serves its
experience.
purpose. Yeah.
Yes. Do you remember, Becca, your like first experience with LGBT culture, community, anything like that?
I do. So, like the typical story of I kind of figured out that I was attracted to not the boys in middle school. So that by the time I was like eighth or ninth grade, I had a pretty good idea, but I wasn't really sure what to do about it. Except that I had learned very early on, and this was like 93, 94, that to be a lesbian was to love the Indigo Girls. That was just part of the culture. That was
Yes.
that was lesbian culture
Yes.
making in the South.
That's true.
And they were playing at a music festival in downtown Chattanooga, and were playing on a Sunday night. So I went to church because we still had Sunday night church in the summer because Baptist. But I hitched a ride to the festival with a woman from my church, and in no lie, a rainbow print broomstick skirt because hippie lesbian in 94, went to an Indigo Girls concert downtown Chattanooga, and it was like this brave new world sort of
Yeah.
experience of look at all these people who are much more like me than the people I spend the majority
Yeah.
of my time with. And it was delightful. So that was like the first time that I saw lots of people and they weren't closeted or ashamed or anything, but they weren't also like being like crazy inappropriate, which is the stereotype that usually went along with it.
Yeah.
It wasn't like a pride festival. It was people being normal at a music festival.
Yeah.
And it was fantastic.
Yeah.
So okay, I also am really fascinated by this skirt.
Uh-huh.
I don't know why that's like one of the highlights
Yes.
from the story.
Do you know what the broomstick hippie skirt is,
What is
Josh?
that?
Okay, it's
No.
a long skirt, and I don't know why it was called a broomstick skirt, but it was basically tie-dyed in circles around the skirt, and when you washed it, you twisted it while it was still wet and tied it in a knot, and it made it like this super wrinkly, and it was like ankle length, so you wore it with like the big
Oh,
flowy clothes
it-
kind of
it-
things. We'll put
In my
an
stage of
image
skirts, I
of a
had
broomstick
one.
skirt
I'm-
in the show
I'm-
notes.
Oh, I have seen these
have
before.
seen
Okay,
these, yes.
I'm gonna put a picture in our group chat. But yes,
Rainbow
now
tie-dye broomstick skirt. Yeah,
Okay.
and we will put it in the show notes
it's delightful
for sure.
for all the young whippersnappers who weren't around back in the day.
Wow.
Wow, I kind of want one.
Isn't it great?
Here, y'all. I just put it in our chat.
Oh, yes, 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 yes,
Um,
yes.
Everybody
let me
like,
see.
oh,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
I didn't know
okay.
that,
No,
was.
that's not what I had, but
Oh.
Mhm.
close.
Okay.
Yes.
So wait, why did you tie it in a knot?
Okay.
Because it would hold the wrinkles in place while it dried to make it have its texture.
I see. Okay.
Okay.
Oh, crinkly.
Okay. Okay.
Interesting.
Interesting. Things you learn.
Yeah.
Well, y'all, it's Pride Month.
Mhm.
Shocker. I don't know if anyone here knew
Been
that.
totally unaware for the past few days on the
and-
internet, as everyone has been fighting about it
Yeah.
constantly.
I know. Mhm.
I
know.
think Grant's like a little hyper aware. Which is fun.
I love that. I was at a church convention for the 1st of June, and I start swiping through my social media feeds next to pastors, and it's just rainbow,
Yeah.
rainbow, 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 triangle, rainbow,
Yeah.
rainbow, rainbow. So yeah, and I was like, "What's
Yes,
happening?"
yes.
Oh, it's June 1st. Okay. So I guess to start us off with this, like, we've had these experiences, all of this. I was reading, I was remembering in Dr. Yarhouse's, I always have to remember his name is not Yardhouse, it's Yarhouse. Um, that in his book, Costly Obedience, he actually talks a little bit about this, like the difficult relationship between the side B community and the
Yeah.
broader LGBTQ community, that not everyone really knows even how to handle this relationship, or if they have any at all. So I'd just like to start out by asking everyone, how do you process your relationship to the broader LGBTQ community as side B Christians? Um, what is that like for you?
I can go first. I
Yeah, go ahead.
When someone asks me about like my experiences with Pride, um, one of the experiences I go to was one of the Pride festivals I went to when I was in college. And the context that year, I can't remember which year exactly it was, but it was a year when Springfield, Missouri had just repealed anti-discrimination policies for LGBTQ people citywide. So they had instated anti-discrimination policies, and then there was like a mass movement from local churches, including one very prominent mega church that very quickly got a lot of signatures on clipboards, because there were people with clipboards in the lobbies of the churches, to repeal those anti-discrimination policies. This was the first time I had ever become really politically active. I went door to door and had conversations with people about why we should keep the anti-discrimination policies in effect. And I shared how they would affect me. It's like, this is very personal because it affects my ability to get a job, to get an apartment, to use public accommodations. And so it was more of a somber tone, this Pride. And so I was just thinking of how I felt a lot of solidarity with the broader LGBTQ community at that Pride, because I was thinking, wow, we've all just been affected by something that's really difficult, and in some sense it sort of bound us together. So I guess that's an experience I draw from when I think about how I relate to the broader LGBTQ community, and during Pride. But yeah, it's not always that simple, but that's something I think about a lot.
That's really good. Yeah. I think a lot about how, like, your experience connects a little bit to experience I had of when you have those moments where you just feel like it brings us all together and we're having a mutual, like, I think a global one, especially that I've heard even like in South America, has been the Pulse nightclub shooting, which
Yeah.
obviously the anniversary is coming up in this week. It was something that I feel like you didn't even have to be connected to anyone there. You didn't have to be connected to the club or anything, and just people felt like it impacted everyone
Yeah.
that I know. And there was just this moment of going, wow, our community is being attacked.
Yeah.
And that could have been me, these moments. And brings that feeling of, I remember that was the moment for me when I felt like a call from God. I wasn't in ministry to the LGBT, like within this conversation at the time, but that was the moment I felt like God was saying, like, your family needs you. And it was that first moment I felt like from God calling the LGBTQ community. Well, not the first time, but like the first time I felt like within my faith of God calling the LGBTQ community my family. For sure.
I think I obviously remember Pulse too, and like I said, I don't really have any interaction with the broad LGBT community. I'm from a small area. We don't usually have Pride. The local governments don't recognize Pride Month, it's not really a thing down here. But I do remember when that happened, it was like I had just got back to the States, like within days of that. I think a few, at most maybe a couple weeks.
Wow.
And I still didn't feel like a connection to them at that point. I had just been like kind of processing my sexuality at that point, maybe I guess a couple of years or so. I mean, they're a little bit off and on, but more like I think I had started thinking about it when marriage equality had passed. But I still was like, that was still them. That was still everybody else. That was still not me. And then when that happened, it was like, no, those people are just like me. I've never even been to a club, period. I'm that homeschooled. Like, I don't have no desire to do that. If you go do that, I don't care for it. Have fun. Like, it's not my thing. Like, I don't go to clubs. I've never been part of like what people call the broader LGBT community, but that moment felt like the reason that those people died is the same reason I would have in that situation. Like, it didn't really have to do with the fact my mom was like, that's why people shouldn't go to clubs. Like,
wow.
Like, she's like, you shouldn't be out late at night. I'm like,
Exactly what my mom's response
that's
was
not
then. Nothing good happens after midnight.
like, but it was like, it was just this very somber moment of me realizing it's like, no, that I'm not any better. It's the subtle differences don't matter in those moments. And it was the first time I felt like I would actually say we in relation to the rest of the LGBT community.
Yeah. I really think it united people. Like, I think that was that one thing where just everyone realized how much there was a chance that could have been me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know? And united people in that way. And I mean, that's a reason why I live. I mean, so crazy part is that I think that was happening during Gay Days of Disney.
Oh, wow.
I'm trying to remember specifically. I can't remember. Because I remember that I had been thinking at the time of potentially going. I live 2 hours away from Orlando, and I had been thinking of going. And I used to go to Pulse in my party days. And when I went to a strip club thinking it was a gay club, like a dance club. So those days. But I don't even think that like, obviously for me that made it very personal. Like, last year was the first time I went to Pulse, just because it was just so crazy that it happened there, and so close to home. But at the same, and also like on top of that, it was especially close to home for me because the mosque that the guy who the shooter attended was 4 miles from my home.
Oh, wow.
So he was from my community and then had gone up there. But again, I think that while that made it very personal for me, at the same time, I found that I could find someone in South America, I could find someone in Europe, I could find someone anywhere around the United States, and they would have been like, that was similar and impactful for me. Sarah, Becca, do you have any thoughts on this? How you've processed your relationship to the LGBTQ community?
Yeah, like I was thinking through that kind of political activism side of it as well, that the first time that anything like that happened that really got me thinking about those things was with the Prop 8 movement in California. I think it was back in '08, looking at adding to the state constitution about making marriage specifically between a man and a woman. And that impacted me because a friend of mine from college was in a same-sex marriage, and they had just gotten married. And the question was, so what happens, like, if this goes into effect, what happens to us now?
Yeah.
And that was the first time that I really saw how those laws and how acts and propositions and resolutions impact people's daily lives. That if you're talking about just a matter of political liberty, um, you know, things as practical as joining their insurance and their checking accounts and things like that of, well, now what are we going
Yeah.
to do if this goes into effect?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
understanding that this is something that I had only discussed up to that point on more of like a theoretical, theological, let's just have
Exactly.
an academic debate kind of thing. And that was the first time that it really brought it to a, no, this is something that impacts people's lives.
Hmm.
And that was very good for me, so that from that point, I was able to recognize, oh, this is about you, so that every time things would come up, all the way to things that Tennessee did just within the last couple of years, based on anti-discrimination laws and things being repealed and things being put into place of, I could lose my job because I was teaching in a private Christian school simply for saying I experienced same sex attraction. I legally could have been fired. And even though Tennessee is an at will state for work anyway, it just added to that. Well, now there's a legal excuse to be able to do that.
Hmm.
So it really has been the political, historical events like that that have helped me solidify and understand where I fit into that culture. Because like Ashley, other than my experience with the Indigo Girls concert, like that was it.
Yeah.
Really, like I went like full force in the ninth grade and then was not a part of any of that until college. So yeah, that's really what got me started with it.
Yeah.
And I remember when it was funny that when marriage equality passed in 2015, I was
Hmm.
in South America. I had been for about almost 6 years at that point.
Wow.
Um, I didn't even know it was coming up. I didn't know it was a thing that was being processed. I didn't know that that was gonna happen. Like, not that it really mattered to me, but I
Yeah.
remember like all of a sudden, like all my people on my Facebook feed is very mixed from people from over there and people from home and all that, and all of a sudden all my United States stuff is it's news being shared and rings with rainbows and news articles, and then obviously all the people from my church community reacting and saying things, and it was almost one, like I said, it was very surprising because I didn't it just kind of felt very sudden to me because I didn't know what was going on, and just seeing how people reacted, and like I said, just being that was kind of what threw me into a certain, almost like a tailspin of like, well, is that how they would all feel about me? Like,
Mm.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
like, to what, how quick would I go from being the golden child that was like, ooh, she's the missionary, blah 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 blah, to I'm one of them, and that you're gonna talk about me and to me the same way that you did about something that doesn't even affect you.
Hmm.
And it was that was like something that was also kind of just like one of those things that kind of brings you to reality real fast.
Yeah.
Yeah. I I think so because I think that there is a lot of the title of this episode, I don't know if we'll stick with it, but the one that we're
Yeah.
working title. I don't know how often we actually stay with the working titles from the season 3 doc, but was the co-hosts on LGBTQ community as chosen family. And I think that there's these dual sides of having chosen family as well as then our relationship to the LGBTQ community, and they don't always intersect. Like you said, Ashley, like you don't never really had experiences in the LGBTQ community. That doesn't mean obviously being involved in the side B community is in a form of being
Yeah.
involved in the LGBTQ community, but the broader one. Um, and but yet I sometimes I feel like the idea of chosen family that we find is about finding those people that just understand your situation, or at least if they don't understand your situation, that no matter your situation will be there, even if they don't get it. You know, um, and sometimes that can be found in the LGBTQ community. Like I know that's been a big part for me because of spending so much time in the broader, LGBTQ community. I never really spent a lot of time in the Christian LGBTQ community until becoming side B. Even when I was affirming, I didn't really spend a lot of time in the affirming community. I just never did. But I I had found really a big home, and I would still even say a lot of my community is in the non-Christian LGBTQ community. Most of my local friends are non-Christian, and are queer. But it's that community that even like that even if they don't understand everything, like they're just going to be there. So, kind of continuing this conversation of realizing your connection to the LGBTQ community. In your own situation, what has chosen family looked like for you? How has the LGBTQ community been part of that, or the church, or vice versa? Sarah, do you have any thoughts on this? Would you like to start us off?
Ooh.
Or if you need time to talk, or if you need time to think.
Yes,
Okay. Okay.
I will have things to say, but it's going to take me a second.
No worries. No worries. Becca, can you start us off on this a little bit?
Absolutely, sure. Yeah, chosen family has become a phrase that's very near and dear to my heart, but that is, I think, because having sort of the same experience you did, that idea of chosen family didn't become really a part of my vocabulary until I joined the Side B community. There was a sense of community when I was involved with Exodus Ministries and going to the conference and things like that. There was community, and there were people that I stayed in contact with after conferences, and that but it was community, it was ministry. And I think some of that, looking back now, is on me more than it was on other people, simply because I did tend to keep people at such arm's length. I was scared of having that. Are you going to be able to edit my cat out of the background? I just realized she's back there dancing.
I just wanted to say, I love that each cat is making their own, appearance in each episode.
Thanks, Dolly. Appreciate that. That's Dolly
Perfect.
Parton. Makes sense that she'd be hanging out with us for Pride Month. Yeah,
it does.
Yes.
Yeah, Dolly's made her iconic appearance for us. But knowing and understanding that need from myself for having chosen community, that now I have kind of a dual chosen community of, here are my side B people, and we have community locally, and then we have community internationally of, I love the fact that I could throw out there, hey, I'm going to so-and-so whatever on Twitter, and within like 2.5 minutes, I'd have 3 places to stay. That idea of hospitality and family is something I'm still getting used to. That is so really the way the church is supposed to be. So it has been the Side B community that I have allowed to be that chosen family. I guess that's probably the best way to say it, because it is a give and take kind of thing. And this is the first time that I have felt in a position spiritually and relationally to be able to say, I trust you to be chosen family.
That's so good. Yeah, I actually was having a conversation with. I went out to dinner. Go ahead. Oh, Sarah. No, sorry. I was just gonna say, I had a similar situation at dinner where someone was saying, "Oh my gosh, like people in every single city," and I was like, 90% of that is because of the of the Side B community. I don't pay for hotels. I don't. Anyway, Sarah, what were you gonna say? Yes.
A couple things. One, I think some of what I love about queer culture is just the normalization of random people doing the things that your family would do. I remember that was one of the things that stood out to me at my first Side B retreat. Just so many questions that I didn't even realize I needed answers to. I remember, I mean, I'm Demi, as most of you know, and so anytime I have a crush, very overwhelming, has happened like
Yeah.
4 times in my life, and so it's like a thing. Um, and I got back from a Siberia retreat and was like, oh my goodness, I have all of these feelings. I'm like, I don't know what to do with this. And then texted someone and they talked me through it and just like had very helpful advice. And was like,
Yeah.
oh, like this is the kind of stuff that a parent would normally do that I think a lot of parents of queer children just aren't equipped to be able to have those conversations in a way that both points their kids towards Jesus, but also normalizes those feelings. And I think even like people that I've worked with who I've been able to process things with, and just the ways that queer people, I think, love each other really well and love each other really sacrificially and are willing to, I think because they tend to be less invested in the nuclear family and heteronormative structures, there's just a different framework to those conversations. And I think the person who I consider probably most my chosen family grew up in church with me, and then they eventually left the church and I don't think are religious now, but have just invested in my life really well and care for me on a really, like, and have pursued a relationship with me in a way that I don't think I have ever been pursued in a relationship with other people. And I think that has just been a gift. And I really appreciate having both secular and Christian people in like chosen family spaces and being able to have the space to process things, but also process things with Jesus and do kind of like work through the shame, but also work through like how, because my faith is so integral to my life, and having, I think, both of those voices has been a really helpful balance in my life.
That's so good. Yeah, I was thinking, I feel like chosen family is such a standard LGBTQ experience. Like, it's something that so many of us believe in so strongly, and it comes out even in ways when we're not articulating it. Like, it's just a fixture of LGBTQ culture and community, and I think there's a lot of reasons for that. I mean, part of them are like we've not always had good relationships with our families, or we've had additional difficulties in having families being able to have legally recognized relationships or adopt children, for instance. I'm speaking broadly, all LGBTQ people. But also I think what Sarah's talking about, like, someone like LGBTQ people just know how to answer our questions better than oftentimes our biological or families of origin. And that's not necessarily all the time because like our families of origin are bad or unsafe, but just unequipped, I think, is the word you used. And I think that's so normal. That's so normal and so understandable, and that's why like chosen family means so much to us, is because we really need it. Just we naturally need it. So yeah, I don't know.
And I think that like that lack there of people not knowing what to do. And I remember a mentor at one time, she was talking to me. She's like, the reason I don't talk to you about this in general is because I don't know what to. I don't know how to. Like, that's why she didn't broach the subject with me, because she didn't know how to. However I may have felt about it, it was something that I did realize, and I was like, I understand that. I'm like, I wish you'd try, but I accept, that what you're recognizing to me. But I think also that, like, if we were able to grow up with more of just other queer people in our vicinity, at the very least, it would really take that shame level down, because that lack that straight people have of not knowing what to do with it at all, their and their automatic reactions, whether it be bad or just I don't know, it doesn't help us, and it kind of brings more of that shameful feeling on us, whereas if someone else would have been like, yeah, obviously. It'd have been like, oh, so it's not
Yeah.
that serious.
Yeah.
You know, like you have a 12-year-old kid who's like have their first crush and they feel like they've committed some immortal, you know, some damning sin, and somebody'd be like,
Yeah. Girl, calm down.
not that serious.
Yeah.
It would be,
Yep.
I think that kind of goes back to like what Sarah said of it's so much of normalizing
Yeah,
people
that's what I'm
doing
saying.
Yeah,
things
family does, yeah.
that normal
Yeah,
people do.
yeah. Random people doing what
Yeah, random people normalizing random people doing what people do on a normal basis.
Yeah, I love
I
that.
feel like what she was saying too about like at first, like my first retreat, I only went on one of the Side B retreats, but I remember it was like 2017, I think, and I went, and it was just this. Well, it was the overwhelming feeling of this being all very new, and that was the first time I had done anything to physically,
Yeah.
you know, pursue this community outside of, you know, the internet. And so it was like, this
Yeah.
is, I can't take it back now. It was like the feeling I had.
Yeah.
But I remember getting there and it being like, one, like seeing these people feeling like you knew them so well, even though you'd never really met them. And people coming up to me and asking me questions about my family, about just different things that they knew about me from being on Facebook. They knew about my husband's immigration process, and they were asking me how that was going. Like, they were actually invested in different areas of my life that had nothing to do with my sexuality. Like, they were there for me in various aspects. I'd come to the States, back to the States, I mean, on my own, and at that point, that my little Side B community became very important in my life because those were the people who were reaching out to me, checking on me, you know, just keeping me company when I was coming back home, but I was very much kind of alone at that point because it was just, I'd been gone for years. And they were the people that actually helped me through that process as opposed to people I grew up with.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that that's like the biggest thing. And I don't want anyone to take from this episode that somehow you have to have a relationship with the broader LGBTQ community outside of it. Because I think that what we're talking about can be found even among, like, we're like, actually just what you said, like finding it among Side B, finding it among people where you're just like, wow, we know each other. There's a meme or something that says like LGBT friendships, date, like meeting one. Here is all my trauma from growing up in church. Meeting number 100. Oh, you have a dog? Like,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, like the internet
Yes.
friends, yeah.
or
I
something.
know about all your childhood trauma, and it's like, wait, you have a dog?
Exactly.
We go through all of these like big things of everything, and then it's
First.
like we find out all of these random things about people that you normally find out on the beginning of it. And
Yeah.
I think it just comes back to that, like with the family of origin thing. I think for me, the biggest thing that I've done processing because I think that understanding our chosen family goes hand in hand with processing our family of origin. Like these two things go together and they collide, and as we try to figure out, because I think normally in a heterosexual situation, the two families automatically come together because whoever you marry automatically just gets incorporated in to your family of origin, and then it just all mashes together. Whereas with us, it's not as big. Like, for instance, one of my bigger things has been lately, my family does family pictures every year, and like we do like a bigger picture and then every family unit on their own. And I've just decided this year, I'm like, I'm not gonna do a picture by myself anymore because I shouldn't be by myself. I have family.
Yeah.
And that I have family but I think that the problem is not that it's rejection from my family of origin. It's that I'm asking questions of my life. Like Sarah, like you said, when you went to the retreat, like there were questions that you didn't even realize you were supposed to be asking. I think it's just like when we get into the queer experience, we start asking questions that just aren't there for our family of origin. They're not asking because it doesn't make an impact on their life. And then sometimes I know I've realized where I've been like, are these questions wrong to be asking? Because then my family goes, well, why are you asking that? And I'm like, well, because it affects my life. It doesn't affect theirs the same way.
Yeah.
And then I think it's just getting the people around us. Like for me, chosen family is two things: getting the people around me who are either comfortable processing those questions with me or are also processing those questions themselves, um, as well as then, like now I would say a new part of my like chosen family has been taking bringing in people that are going through the questions that I've gone through and then being able to help process with them through those same questions, you know, um, and being able to walk in this kind of family situation.
Yeah.
But that's been some of my experience.
I wonder too if um, I wonder if part of the giftedness of LGBTQ culture, the unique value and perspective that it offers, is that the nuclear family is not enough.
Yeah.
It's just not. Even the best ones are not enough.
Yeah, it was never designed to be enough.
It was, yeah, exactly. It was never designed to be enough. And so we can be kind of, I don't know the word, but we can call attention to that. Like it's the nuclear family is a very limited picture of what family is and can be. And because LGBTQ people need and seek after chosen family, and we've become really skilled in it, I think we can offer that perspective to people who feel like they should be satisfied with their biological family only, with valuing it and esteeming it above all other kinds of family. We can show them that family is so much bigger and broader and stranger than that. Not that biological family or families of origin are bad, by no means. They're great, they're wonderful, they can be so beautiful. I'm just saying they're not enough, and they weren't ever supposed to be enough.
Well, and I think that the LGBTQ experience, like being LGBTQ and having the experience of community, like chosen family, like what we find many times in the Side B community, and many times even what I found abroad, like outside of that, has even impacted my understanding. Like the chosen family, I really think is probably the most easily like translated LGBTQ concept to Christian culture, because
100%.
the church was meant to be your chosen family. And I think really what I've experienced inside B, what I've experienced with LGBTQ people, has made me very unsatisfied with the community that many churches offer. Because now, as I look for a church and like processing where my church home is now, living in Florida, it's like I'm not satisfied with people that I just see on Sunday and go, hey, how are you, before we sit down and listen to an hour-long sermon. Like, I want people to do life with, because that is the church, you know. And I think that makes us crave more, and we want more from our church. And hoping that then we can help others see, just as you said, we can help others see that they're also not as satisfied with it. Like
that's what I was trying to say, like on the sides episode. Like that's what I feel like. Apart from the sexuality conversation of itself, I think that's what side B represents. Is this broader understanding of what family is and is supposed to be. Like, I mean, I didn't articulate it because I fumbled with my words, but like that's what I meant. Like that's what I think we have. One of the things we have to offer the church, but it's like I think that's what it represents. It's not just the celibacy position. It's not just the, you know, the abstaining position. You know, it's this position of, you know, if you give up this and this, God has so much more for you, and that what this, like I said, this broader definition of what family is, can be, and should be.
Yeah, I think that I forgot. Is it Mark? It's one of the Gospels. Jesus talks about, of course it's a gospel, Jesus is talking.
Mark 10:33.
Yeah, that's it. Where it's like, anyone who's given up mothers and fathers
That's
and
one of my
brothers and
favorites.
sisters will receive in this life a hundredfold, like houses and mothers and brothers and.
The interesting thing is, because I remember I've obsessed over that one a few times.
Yeah.
If it's not obvious, it's 10:30. Now let me see, because he says some that you give up and some that aren't exactly replaced. Let's see. No one who has left home or brothers or sisters, mother, father, or children, or feels for me in the gospel will fail to receive 100 times as much in this present age, homes, brothers, sisters, mothers, children, and fields, along with persecutions, and in the age to come eternal life. One of the things that you gave up, because it says that you gave up homes, brothers, sisters, mothers, and fathers, and it says that you will give you in this life homes, brothers, sisters, mothers, children, and fields. But he doesn't say fathers, because that is him.
Yes.
That's the way I see it.
Correct.
Love it. Love it. Yeah, and it reminds me of what Grant has written about before, and I think it was your response to the PCA statement. Yes, about that chosen family really is a clearer picture of what we're going to be doing in eternity, because nobody's going to be married. We're not going to be making our own biological families in eternity. We are going to be siblings with our big brother Jesus, with our heavenly Father, and that is going to be this level playing field sort of family. And we have this beautiful opportunity to show people on earth that this is the fulfillment of this brotherly love, this unconditional love that we're supposed to be sharing with one another, that this is it. We are giving you the picture now, that marriage is this tiny little picture of what Jesus is going to be doing for the church, but it's not what we're going to be doing as individuals for eternity. What we do now in our chosen family in relating with one another is what eternity is going to be like for us as individuals and as community. And so having that place of saying, we are going to model this for you, especially in the time that we live, that we have idolized marriage and the family of origin so much in the church that we're missing what those other things should look like, that we have this opportunity of saying, actually, this is something we've got. If you'll just kind of step back and let us show you what this looks like. We've been doing this for like decades now. And being able to contribute that to churches that desperately need it is kind of our like called out moment in the church right now.
Like, I remember, well, one of the things that I think about, I believe that side B people also have a special place in what is missions, because of, as Paul said, not having the spouse, you can dedicate yourself more to the Lord. And in different missionary communities that I've seen, we lived in community many a time, well, all the time. When I was single, I was canned in with 15 other women in a room and 30 to a house. And when I got married, we got our own room, but we're still living in a house with 50, 60 other people. And I loved it. And I mean, I have a lot of siblings, so I've always had a lot of people around. But I've always loved that community aspect. So I've always thought that if they would be more accepting of us, it's a place where we would thrive.
Yeah.
But I do remember one time in one of the places we were living, it was one of the houses we were in, and one of the couples, they had 2 little girls. And one of them, she was probably 2, maybe 3, and she spent time with all of us. It was just a bunch of adults, and we loved it. Like, she would sit with us while we did our homework. She would always ask for our phones or our tablets or what have we that she could entertain herself with while her parents went around. And, we loved her. She was like everybody's kid sister. We'd go to her parents, like, hey, can I give her a piece of candy? Hey, I have some cookies, can she do this? Can she do that? We were all very respectful. We obviously know that these are her parents. We're not her, blood family, and, respecting authority and everything. But I remember one time we were in like a staff meeting, and the director or whatever, she was talking. She's like, I think we need to pull back on this a little bit because these girls need to have clear who their parents are, and if all these different adults are, you know, you know, doing different things with them differently, or how would you say, metiendo manos,
Yeah.
like sticking
Oh
nails
gosh.
where it doesn't belong to a
Yeah.
certain extent. But it wasn't anything like we were doing anything bad. It'd be like she comes sit and eat lunch with us instead of with her mom and dad. It was like at the same giant table.
Yeah.
Like nothing big. Only her parents brought her to the bathroom if she needed to go. We're all sane adults. But they were like, no, we need to pull the reins back on that because she's not going to really understand who her parents are in this situation, and people need to kind of back off. And I was like, at the time, it sounded a little bit off, but as time has gone on, I was like, that was so off. I was like, it takes a village. I was like, I honestly think that situation was not perfect, because no situation is perfect. But I mean, I think it helped, because the little girl's mom was like my mentor, and I know that helped because she had a baby at the time. Us helping with the 2-year-old definitely helped. Just getting her out of the room, letting her come do something else while mom took care of the baby. Or sometimes she'd be going to do dinner, and she'd be like, since I do have, like I said, a lot of siblings, she'd be like, do you want to go give the baby a bath for me? Be like, can you do this? Those are people that were very close to me and my husband at one point. And then the other leaders that were over them came be like, y'all, as like two families, like y'all are getting too close. They're depending on you guys too much. And we were like, what? Like, I mean, we were young, recently married, it's like, what if you guys say, I don't know. But there were a couple things that were like an awkward situation to me. It was like, to me, the direction that things were going was the right one. And everybody's like all afraid people get close or get attached, or I don't know. It was just, as time went on and I reflected, I was like, that was weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that sometimes it's people don't know what to do with those things, and they get scared.
Yeah.
And because obviously it's like, if we really take literally how the Bible talks about what the church is meant to be, that they share everything in common, that they do, these are radical concepts of community. And like, in many ways, it's crazy that for many of us, that's what we experience that most among other LGBT Christians. Many times, and it gives a glimpse that sometimes it's like, I wish I could get my like straight friends to experience this, but it sometimes comes from that unique bond that just clicks. So it's really good.
That's another reason why I appreciate LGBTQ people in general. That, like, I don't know, I have a lot of friendships that look very different than what like the typical model of a friendship looks like. And I can go to my queer friends and have conversations of like, here's what we're thinking about boundaries, here's what this friendship is looking like, and know that like they've done the work of thinking outside of these structures. And so the advice that they're going to give me is not rooted in this idea of like what friendship should be and what a marriage should be, that they have more scaffolding and thus are able to give advice that is actually helpful and constructive, and not just looking at what the norm is and trying to match that norm.
That's really good.
One more caveat I want to add before we move on.
Yes.
I think sometimes in the queer community as a whole, we can swing to the other extreme with chosen family and expect that every person that we interact with is like going to be this person who is going to be in our life forever, who is going to give us all of these things. And I think sometimes that keeps us from being able to accept the little moments as a gift, and sets us up for unhealthy dynamics, particularly with relationships that exist predominantly online.
Yeah, that's so good.
Yeah.
And so I think that's something to be conscious of in this conversation, and like with listeners, that chosen family is really beautiful, but is also something that is sacred, and that you can't just fall into and can't just come into it. Yeah, that The other thing is, I read this book called Black Girl Dangerous by Mia McKenzie. It was incredible. I recommend it. But she talked about queer space, and that, like, as a Black queer academic, it was really helpful for her to recognize that, like, just because I'm in a queer space doesn't mean that I'm going to find my people. If I'm in a space with, like, Black queer academics, then, like, those will be my people. But maybe I might bond more with a Black academic who isn't queer, and that, like, just because we're queer doesn't mean that I'm going to walk into this space, instantly feel at home, instantly feel belonging, and everything's going to be great.
Yeah, that's true.
And I think sometimes we talk about this in a way that people walk into spaces and then are sad when it's not like this coming home moment. But because of the vastness of queer identity and what that looks like, and the ways that your family of origin and your context plays into it, that sometimes I've gone to queer spaces and been like, I had a Black lesbian book club that I went to one time, and at the end of it, they were all talking about, like, their relationships to each other and how they had all hooked up before and all of this stuff, and both on the side B front and the demi front, I was like, this is, I am out, I cannot engage this, I don't feel a sense of belonging in this particular environment with this group of people, even though we have so much in common. And yeah, I just felt like that was important to me.
So true.
Yeah, that is.
It's so good.
It's part of like what Josh was talking about, kind of like we was talking about it like in a meme sense of like that it's a lot of this, for lack of a better term, trauma bonding of like, you know, like here's all my deep dark secrets, here's, you know, because it's such, sexuality is such a personal thing, especially from us with faith backgrounds, that it was something that we held inside for so long and internalized, and it's something that's so rooted into, as much as even, I want to try to say this nicely, even those who like they're very off put by identity things, the thing is when you internalize it so much, it still becomes a big part of who you are. And so you bond over those experiences, and then you expect that person or the people sometimes that's like, oh, well, we're going to be best friends forever, and it's like, no, it was a moment thing, you know, and then it fades, you know, you don't, you come to find out that you don't have anything else in common, you know, at all, and that happens.
There's a meme. Oh, sorry, really quickly. There's a meme that's so on point with that. I don't know why I've mentioned this one before, where it's these two people meeting and one goes, I'm gay. And then one goes, no, wait, I'm gay. And then the one goes, does that make us best friends? And then the other person says, no, like scared. And then they say, oh, because being gay is only part of who we are, and there's much more to learn about each other. And then it shows that person has a shirt that says Flat Earth Society, and the person goes, yeah, that's why.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, it's something I go back to sometimes. There was a point where like one of the groups, like, you know, I think me and Becca and I'm pretty sure Sarah's into like our women's group. There was a point where it was like there were several of us that figured out we were Star Trek fans, and it was like, you know, we met through sexuality, but we all kind of bonded over that for like a good little minute, and it's stuff like that where there are other aspects to our lives.
Yeah.
I think, I guess what I'm getting from this, the idea that's coming to me is like, all of us in whatever family of origin we come from, and especially LGBTQ people, we notice these wounds that we develop by trying to keep things secret, by trying to wrestle, by not having the answers and not knowing someone who has the answers. And when we meet other LGBTQ people, there is a sense in which so many of those questions are answered, and so many of those longings are fulfilled, and so many of those wounds are healed. But we can end up tricking ourselves into thinking that, oh, now that some of these things are addressed, all of them will be. This people will fix everything. And it's really tricky because so much of it is true. Like, so much of our community with other LGBTQ people is really healing. We do experience so much healing and so much growth and so much joy. But no people is going to fix everything. And I know this is maybe a fairly typical side B journey, But when I entered Side B land, I thought, oh my gosh, these people are going to fix everything. They're going to fix everything. I've got all my longings fulfilled. I was just waiting for this chosen family, and they're going to fix it. My life is going to be good now. I won't have to struggle like I've struggled before. And it took a while for me to be mature enough, I guess, to admit to myself that there's always going to be a woundedness. There's always going to be a loneliness that I'm going to have to grapple with. And it's just because we live in the world we live in, and not everything is perfect. I know a poet who's written a lot that really speaks to me. I've only read a little of his broader works, but Rainer Maria Rilke, he wrote, gave advice about marriage, and one of his advices was, in a marriage, you're supposed to guard the solitude of the other. And I think that's just true in general for all relationships. There's something that people just won't, community can't be everything to you. There's got to be a moment where it's just you and God. But yeah, finding that balance is so tricky. So I'm glad you brought that up, Sarah. That was really, really good.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's tricky and it's hard, and when you finally find it, you have to fight hard for it.
Yep.
You have to fight hard to keep it. It's
it's
not
magic.
It doesn't just stay together.
I wish it was magic.
And
Yeah.
no, it is not. I still remember I've mentioned this before. I think I did it on the COVID thing. People that are all part of my chosen family, we tried to do a house together during the pandemic. Now, granted, it was during when we thought the world was ending, so there was a lot of stress on all of us. But we learned there are some issues with the idea of all of us living in the same house. Just don't work. So, but that didn't mean we weren't chosen family. We are still a chosen family, and we're still in each other's lives. But we have to work hard to keep that. So.
I think that goes the same with blood family.
For sure.
Yes.
I love all of you. You raised me. We grew up together. I cannot live
Got
with
to
you.
go away. Yeah.
I don't know how I got through my childhood with some of my sisters.
It's I love you, and
Yeah.
God put me on the earth with you in the same plot of land, but that was not an eternity thing. That's the first 18 years of my life, and then we part ways.
Yeah.
That leave
And we're no less
that
family.
leave and cleave thing is best for everyone when people go out and
Yes.
do their thing. Yeah.
Well, I know that this doesn't. Obviously, so many of our topics, this does not cover the scope of this topic,
not
and I
at
know
all.
we will get more down the road. Y'all, we've said it before. We get a lot of times where listeners will say, "Oh my gosh, I loved this episode. I want more on it." These are not cohesive conversations about these topics. We're still in season
organic.
3.
They're so sprawling. We don't even know
Exactly.
where we're going half the time.
We don't.
Ain't that the truth?
It's good.
We always appreciate where we end up, but we don't really know how we're going to get there.
True.
Yeah.
Exactly. So this is great. Y'all, we hope that this has been helpful and good. I also want to put this out there that if you are processing your relationship to pride and you also want to hear a little bit more on that, there's also, join our Patreon page. We have a bonus episode where I think it was Grant, Ashley, Mary, and I, right? It was the 4 of us.
Yes.
Yeah.
We did last
Last year.
June. We did. We have a bonus episode there, which talks a little bit about how different Side B people process their relationship to pride and all of that. We hope that this can be a little bit of help for that, and then also that can potentially be help there as well. So throwing that out there as well. You can go to our links in our socials or on our website or anything there for that. But yeah, I think this was a good episode, y'all.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I enjoyed
Thanks
it.
for chatting.
This has been fun. We're so glad to have you back, Sarah,
Thank you.
after a little bit,
Yes.
a few episodes away.
Hiatus.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Keep listening. Follow us on social media, all the things, and we'll talk to you later. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye bye.